Good morning and welcome to More Tea Minister. My name is Ian. Today we are looking at a tea that is completely new to me. I was sent it as a sample along with a purchase from Curious Tea. The style of tea, to one extent, I'm familiar with, but the nation that the tea hails from, Vietnam, I am unfamiliar with. Now, I've always liked the Curious Tea packaging, and I'm going to bring it up close to see if you can catch any of the details. I'm sure it's inverted. My glasses aren't good enough to tell. And the kind of tea is a white tea. Now, a white tea is the least processed kind of tea amongst the six kind of classic genres of tea. I'd always assumed that green tea would count as the least processed because, well, you want to keep it green and you're trying to process it in such a way that you keep it as a green leaf. However, and of course, the reason why green tea remains green is that it undergoes the kill green heat process. That denatures all the various proteins and enzymes within the tea leaves that carry out oxidation upon the leaf that turns it from a green leaf into something that becomes more oxidized and eventually what we would call a leaf of black tea. White tea, on the other hand, is even less processed. It's basically simply withered. And in so doing, what you're doing is obviously reducing moisture and you're inhibiting all of those biochemical processes within the tea leaves. You're not doing away with them, you're simply inhibiting them. Now that leads to two things. The kind of flavor profile that you would associate with a white tea is all about freshness and it's all about incredible sweetness. It's an incredibly intense flavor profile. However, because all you're doing to the leaf is withering it, you're not denaturing the enzymes and proteins, those processes are still there ticking away, ticking over, which is why white tea is an ideal candidate for aging, especially when it comes in a compressed cake form. And one day when I do an aged white tea, I will show you what one of those looks like. But the point is that white tea is a process. It's not, although it hails originally from one part of China, because it's a process, you find it in lots of different countries. Hence, we have this example from Vietnam. Now, let's just talk about a couple of the details of this tea. It's from Vietnam. It's from the Suoi Giang commune. The tea is called Suoi Giang White Peony. White Peony is the second best, let's say, grading system for white tea. The first silver needles is all about buds, and they usually come in sort of long, thin, elongated needle shapes, although they're very soft. And white peony is, at that point, it's unfurled leaves. However, this tea is a little bit different. The reason, let me show you these leaves, and then I can explain why they're different. That might look like, if I don't spill it all over the table, as if it's actually composed of needles. And you'd be right. It's actually a combination of needles, in other words, tea buds, but also some smaller unfurled leaves that are shrunk as they've withered. That's partly the unique processing undertaken by the producer of this tea, who are from the Hmong ethnic group, if I pronounced that correctly. But it's also to do with a varietal of tea that's being used. Now, because white tea can be found in lots of different countries, although there are efforts to replicate these different styles, these different grades, silver needles, white peony, sometimes the actual varietal of tea is different, and that's true in this case. So in this case, what's being used is Assamica leaves, the Assamica strain, one of the two sort of fundamental tea strains, or at least the two classic ones. And where Assamica is found, and I say found because this comes from wild Assamica trees, The tea is usually shipped to China to be turned into dark tea, the classic pu'er dark tea, but some is kept by the local people to turn into tea. So, rather than being a classical arrangement of entirely unfurled leaves, withered leaves, or entirely needles, it's a kind of combination of the both. And that's why, if I show you again, we have two different colours. You can probably tell there's a light colour and a dark colour. You've got the silver needles, which is the tea buds, and the Assamica leaves, although they're green because they haven't been oxidized, when they wither, they go very dark. So, it's a white tea, minimal processing. It's from Vietnam, which is an unusual country to say the least, although I'm pleased to say Curious Tea carry a silver needles version of this tea from the same commune, but also I think a black tea and a green tea as well, although I'd have to check. The point being is, if you're really interested as to what this commune was doing with the tea, or tea from this particular terroir, you could always try the different examples. I simply like white tea, and because it was a free sample, I thought I could use it without worrying about running out because it was free. I should also say that this is from April 2025, so there's no aging to it, which is not a criticism. It's simply that I mentioned that white tea can be aged. So that's the packaging, that's the look of the leaves. All that we can do next is to think about the brewing parameters. The brewing parameters given by Curious Tea are for Western style brewing: 80 degrees centigrade, 1 gram of tea to 100 mils of water for 2 to 3 minutes. So I have in this teapot tea brewed in the Western style, this tea. 80 degrees centigrade for 3 minutes, 5 grams of tea, 500 milliliters of water. And to kind of explore what the flavor profile of this tea is, we're also going to do it Gongfu, or Eastern style. So this is a complete blind tasting to me, or at least it's a cold tasting. I've not tried this tea before. And that was also true of the tea we looked at in our last video, but though I didn't really set that out. So our kettle's been chugging away, keeping itself at 80 degrees centigrade. We've got our 5 grams of tea. So I'm going to be, because I've been talking so much, I'm going to reheat the gaiwan, and I'm going to reheat the jug. It does no harm just to rewarm it. Yeah, that's actually got a bit cold. We don't want that. Let's pour the wastewater away. So we have our gaiwan, and I'm using the lid as the platter for the tea leaves. I've got one of the cups I picked up on holiday. We have our wide-brimmed strainer because we need to pour quickly. And we have our gaiwan and our transparent jug. It really is important to pour quickly because these leaves are delicate. 80 degrees centigrade should tell you that this is something that needs to be treated with kid gloves. And because the leaves aren't rolled, we don't want to be brewing them or steeping them for any length of time. Some fragments of leaf in there as well. So we're going to be quick. We're going to give it, let's say, 15 seconds for our first steeping. Let's get our strainer where we want it. First steeping, 15 seconds. That's 16 seconds. I should point out, as always, that I start counting the timing from the second the water hits the tea, not afterwards. The smell, it's just the incredible, slightly vegetal, but amazing sweetness that you get with white tea. I absolutely love this stuff. But it was smelling fabulous straight as soon as the water hit it. Let's try the colour. A very pale yellow, very pretty much standard. I'm impressed we got that much colour at 16 seconds though. The smell is Very sweet, very vegetal. I wouldn't say floral. It doesn't have that slightly bitter tang that green tea has. So, much the same on the cup. It's just the sweetness that's coming through. Yeah. The first brew or steeping, a really complicated sweetness. There's fruit dipping in and out of there. There's a bit of floral dipping in and out of there. It isn't just plain fruit juice, let's put it that way, or sugar syrup. It isn't one note. It's not a one note of sweetness. There's some complexity in there. It's absolutely gorgeous. In fact, I'm going to be greedy. I'm going to finish off that first steeping. I won't do it with the others. Now, some of these leaves I don't think got the full benefit of the water, so I'm going to pour it directly onto the leaves, which I might not do when it's so delicate. We'll go up to about between 18 to 20 seconds this time. That's 20 seconds. I would say the colour is even darker this time. The smell? Yeah, that's almost musky. Not in a bad way, I just mean it's so complicated, that sweetness. There's a lot of fruit in there. Oh, that's the old drink. Let me just be greedy. The colour from the second steeping, darker yellow that time, or a darker yellow. It's not dark. It's a lovely colour. The smell, yeah, almost a musky incense sweetness. It's so complicated. Let's pour some out into the cup. Take a smell off the cup. Much the same. I will say, despite being so complex, it's not in your face. I've had some white peony that, whilst being wonderfully sweet, is almost like a punch to the face. It's so strong. This is different. It's toned down, but that doesn't mean it's a thin flavour or you can't pick up on it. It's still complex, and maybe because it's not in your face, that's why it's possible to pick up how complex it is. Much the same on the cup. This is a second drink of it, I believe, but I am greedy for this. Yeah, I could drink that all day. Reluctantly pour that away. And you can see there's a lot of leaf fragment on the inside of the lid. So what I'm going to do, although this can affect the water temperature, let's push it towards 25. I'm going to wash the lid. Give it a quick shoe and that's 25. Oop. Some of it's coming out now that the leaves are fattening up, and the buds fatten up a little bit. You might be able to see that there. Yeah. On the lid, it's just getting more complex. There's a sort of slight savoury note to it as well. It isn't, as I say, it's not just pure sweetness. It really is very nice. The colour, I would reckon that's actually darker than the last one. So that's steeping number 3, but the colour's getting stronger. I think this tea has got a lot to give, unless it fades out very quickly. That's much, much sweeter on the nose. A little less complicated, but more intense. I think that's a fair way to put it. I don't think it'd be any different off the cup. No, maybe a hint of fruit, but that's really about it. So this is steeping 3. Yes, a little less complicated, but more sweet. Let's power on to a 4th steeping, and then we'll try the Western style. Helps if I pour it into the right thing, doesn't it? What was I thinking of there? I'm worried about pushing this to the point of being overcooked. So let's drag it down to about 28. I know that's only a few seconds off. Yeah. No, let's go for the 30. We'll just call it quits. Well, that's still a very rich colour. This is steeping 4, I should remind you. That's an intense colour. Yep. I would say it's holding its own. It hasn't got any paler. The slightly vegetal note is kicking in more, but it's still wonderfully sweet. I could happily, if that steeping was the single flavour profile of the tea, even that would be pretty good. Sweet and vegetal, but none of that slightly sickly green tea flavour profile. Yeah, it's starting to get a little thin, but it's still absolutely lovely. It's a little thin, but still complex. Still complex. One last cupful. Yeah. It's still unmistakably a delightful white tea. So, I don't need to strain this tea because I've already brewed this and strained it. This hasn't been steeping the whole time. This is just tea that's been steeped and strained, and I've just kept it warm. So let's pour it out to see the colour. If it's anything as good as the Eastern, I might be drinking a lot of this, which is a shame because I'm hoping to do 2 videos today. The colour there is gold, I would say. Not sure. Can I bring it? There. Ah, there you go. I have a light pointing at it. There you go. That's the colour. You can see that's gold. The smell. Funnily enough, the smell isn't strong, but it's quite complicated. The sweetness there, and some fruit, maybe some floral, and some vegetable. It's that kind of muskiness, and it's something that comes with white tea. I wouldn't say it's a ripe fruit smell. Yeah. I wouldn't say that's better than the Gongfu, but believe it or not, by putting all those different flavour profiles into the one jug, so to speak, there's actually a spiciness coming through that as well. Yeah, I have a terrible feeling I'm going to be drinking all of this, but I might do it after my next video. So let's leave that at that so that this video doesn't go on for too long. Can I recommend this tea? On ease of brewing, as you've seen, both Western and Eastern, all we need to do is keep the steeping time short and a lower temperature, and we don't oversteep the tea. Western, 3 minutes, 80 degrees centigrade, nothing complicated there. Is it enjoyable? Yes. If you like a very sweet flavor profile, you will like this. Especially if you want a little complexity with that sweetness. It's not complex in the way that a Taiwanese mountain oolong or simply a green oolong from Taiwan is complex when you're trying to fold floral and fresh and fruity all together. It's a different kind, it's a different set of flavor profiles all added to this base note of sweetness. There's sweet, there's a bit of vegetal. In the Western style, there's some spiciness coming through as well. So on that respect, I can recommend it. I haven't done much research into how available Vietnamese white tea is. I have seen available white tea from Laos, and I can't imagine. I have actually bought Vietnamese green tea in Glasgow. So Vietnamese tea is not impossible to get hold of, even in a bricks and mortar shop. The fact is, it's 2 out of 3 because I simply don't know how available this particular white tea is, or whether you'd be able to get Vietnamese white tea of any kind in your location. All in all, it's been highly enjoyable. It's not often I find a tea so compelling, but this definitely is. It does leave quite a lasting aftertaste. There's a slightly drying quality, which tea sometimes has, and the sweetness is still on my tongue, which is a very impressive sign. So it only remains for me to say happy steeping and God bless.